If you ever look at me again, you're done here, Kate. You're finished, fired. James Williams' voice exploded through the marble hallway of the William estate like a sound system blowing out at full volume. The chandelier trembled. Servers carrying champagne flinched. The string quartet choked mid-note, bows hanging in the air. And Kate Robert, frozen, breath-tight, feathered duster trembling in her hand, stood staring at the billionaire who had no idea what she'd uncovered in his private study. He saw disobedience. She saw a man living inside a lie. She knew the truth. He didn't. Not yet. Fade to black. Welcome back to Whisper Realm. How are you all doing today? Let me know in the comment section where you're watching from. Like, subscribe, and share to make the video go viral. Earlier that morning, the William estate didn't wake up quietly. It inhaled. Lights hummed on. Security teams rotated. Kitchen staff prepped for the charity gala the entire state of Connecticut had been gossiping about. For most employees, it was another day inside the mansion of one of America's most feared billionaires. James William wasn't a mystery. He was a warning. Emotionally unreachable. Ice-blooded. Don't look him in the eye unless you want to lose your job. It didn't matter if it was whispered by an intern in Manhattan or a board member in Chicago. Everyone knew the rule. Everyone except the new cleaning lady. Kate Robert had been there less than a week. A single mom from Bridgeport working 3 jobs, she'd taken the position because the paycheck could finally put a dent in the past due notices stacked on her kitchen counter. Rent, daycare, medical bills. Life had left her no breathing room, so she planned to keep her head down, clean fast, and stay invisible. No mistakes, no attention, certainly no eye contact. But exhaustion didn't care about rules. By early afternoon, her legs were shaking and her vision blurry from lack of sleep. She just needed to clean the hallway near the West Wing and clock out. Then she turned a corner she wasn't supposed to and walked straight into him. James William, tall, sharp suit, colder than the January wind outside. His presence didn't just fill space, it rearranged it. Their eyes collided for one accidental second. A second too long. He stopped. She froze. And the temperature in the hallway seemed to drop 10 degrees. Don't look at me. Ever. He snapped, loud enough for staff to scatter like startled birds. Humiliation burned through her, rooting her to the glossy floor. An older maid brushed past, whispering urgently, "Never look at him." Kate swallowed the shame, lifted her chin just enough to breathe, and slipped away toward the one room she felt safe enough to finish her shift. James's private study. She had no idea that within minutes, her entire life, and his, would crack open. The truth was waiting behind that wall panel. Kate exhaled slowly as she entered James Williams' private study, closing the heavy door behind her. The room felt different from the rest of the mansion, quieter, colder, like even the air knew it wasn't meant to be disturbed. Staff rumors said no one had cleaned this room in weeks. He didn't allow it. He barely allowed anyone to breathe near it. But today, by some miracle or mistake, the door had been left unlocked. A burned photograph, edges charred, the image faded almost beyond recognition. And a flash drive, labeled in black marker. Robert. Her last name. Her blood turned icy. Why would a billionaire she'd never met, never spoken to, have something with her name hidden inside a wall? Her breathing quickened. She lifted the flash drive, her fingers trembling as though it might burn her too. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Her heart lurched. James! Without thinking, she shoved the items behind her cleaning cart, tucking them deep beneath towels and supplies. She pressed her palm to her chest, tried to steady her breath. The flash drive felt heavy in her hand, heavier than anything she'd ever carried. If someone else saw this, she whispered to herself, voice shaking, they wouldn't walk away. They'd stay to see the truth unfold. A beat. Maybe you should too. The study door handle began to turn. Kate stared at the flash drive one last time before slipping it out of sight. Just as the door opened, the door slammed open so hard the hinges rattled. James stepped inside, his presence swallowing the room like a sudden storm. His gaze cut straight to the wall, straight to the panel she hadn't fully closed. For a split second, the compartment shifted just enough to betray her. His eyes snapped to Kate. Cold, sharp, volcanic. What are you doing in here? His voice cracked through the room like a whip. I told staff this room is off limits. Kate felt the air tighten around her. The cleaning cloth in her hand trembled. She said nothing, praying he couldn't hear the frantic beating of her heart. He took one step closer. Look at me again, and you're fired. The words hit the walls so hard they seemed to echo. Outside the study, the staff had begun to gather. Nannies, cooks, groundskeepers, hovering in the hallway like witnesses to a disaster waiting to unfold. She could sense them holding their breath. Everyone expected her to crumble, to apologize, to shrink until she disappeared. That was the pattern, especially with him, especially for someone like her. But the weight of the flash drive hidden behind her cart, the burned edges of that photograph, the sight of her last name in his secret wall, something in her locked into place. She set the cloth down, slowly, deliberately, and raised her eyes to meet his. Not in challenge, not in disrespect, just truth. Mr. Williams, she said softly, her voice steady in a way that surprised even her. Yelling at the people who keep your house running won't fix what's really hurting you. Silence froze the room. It was the kind of silence that felt like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. James's expression flickered. Shock, confusion, something else he couldn't hide fast enough. No one talked to him like that. Not in years. Maybe not ever. Kate didn't step back. James opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a scream echoed from the hallway. And everything changed. The scream from the hallway hadn't even faded when James's fury twisted unexpectedly into something else. Pain. A sharp, raw grimace carved across his face. He pressed a hand to his chest, fingers digging into the fabric of his tailor's shirt, as if trying to hold himself upright by force alone. Mr. Williams? Kate stepped forward despite everything. Are you? He staggered. The tumbler on his desk slipped from his hand, shattering across the polished hardwood like a burst of ice. Water spread beneath his shoes. His knees buckled. Then he collapsed. Kate didn't think. She moved. Instinct took over. She caught his weight just before his head struck the floor, lowering him gently as his breath came ragged and uneven. James! Sir! Please stay with me. Look at me, stay awake. Her voice shook, but her hands were steady, supporting him as if she'd done it 100 times. Chaos erupted around them. Staff flooded into the room, gasping, shouting over one another. Someone yelled for security. Someone else fumbled for their phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. The hallway buzzed with panic. But James didn't respond to any of them. His unfocused eyes searched only for her. His hand lifted weakly, then clamped around Kate's wrist with surprising strength for a man struggling to breathe. Don't, his voice cracked, barely audible. Leave. The room froze again, but for a different reason this time. Kate swallowed hard. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Security pushed through the cluster of staff, lifting James onto a stretcher as paramedics burst in with equipment. Orders flew. The world blurred together. Flashing lights, clipped instructions, urgency pounding like a second heartbeat. But James's hand didn't release hers until the very last moment. Minutes later, an SUV from the estate's motor pool screeched to the front entrance. The lead security officer looked at her. He asked for you. Get in. Kate didn't hesitate. She climbed into the back seat beside James's stretcher as the SUV sped toward New Haven Hospital, her heart racing, her mind spinning, and her life shifting into something she couldn't yet name. The ER doors slammed open as the medical team rushed James inside. Blue scrubs, clipped commands, rolling gurneys. Everything moved too fast for Kate to process. She stood frozen in the fluorescent glow of New Haven Hospital, her hands still trembling from the chaos of the ride. A nurse approached. Ma'am, he held on to these. I think he wanted you to have them. She placed a small plastic property bag in Kate's hands. Inside, his wallet, his watch, and the flash drive. Kate's stomach tightened. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. But this thing, this tiny metal secret, had already pulled her into something she didn't understand. Minutes later, she found an empty workstation near the nurse's station. She glanced around. No one paid attention. The air hummed with distant beeping monitors and muffled voices. She slid the flash drive into the computer. A folder popped up immediately. Robert. Her last name. She clicked. The first file was a medical report. Not James's, her mother's. A blood type match chart. Lab notes dated years earlier. Her breath caught. The next document made her hand fly to her mouth. Case log. Missing person, Olivia Williams. James's wife. And beneath it, a scanned photo of her mother and Olivia together. Younger. Side by side. Like friends. Or something closer. Kate's pulse hammered as she clicked through more files. Correspondence between their families. References to a debt. A disappearance. A promise. The histories overlapped in ways she couldn't untangle fast enough. Her world tilted. She wasn't just some cleaning hire. She wasn't random. She was connected to the most painful chapter of James's life. One he had buried so deeply he hid the evidence behind a false wall. Her throat tightened with a helpless, trembling ache. A thought whispered through her, soft, devastated, but honest. If someone heard a story like this, they wouldn't just walk away. They'd stay, because some truths deserve witnesses. She wiped her cheeks, surprised by the tears she didn't remember shedding. This changed everything. Everything she knew about him. Everything she believed about herself. Kate closed the folder, pulled the flash drive free, and whispered into the quiet hum of the hospital hallway. He's not going to see me the same after this. The hospital room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of a monitor that beeped steadily beside the bed. The world outside the window was pitch black, Connecticut quiet, the kind of stillness that made every sound sharper. At 3:07 a.m., James's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. His breath hitched, his gaze unfocused, scanning the room as if expecting another collapse, another wave of pain. Then he saw her. Kate, slumped in the vinyl chair beside him, chin tucked to her chest, exhaustion written across her face. One of her hands rested loosely on the armrest, the other, still holding his. His fingers were curled around hers, like he'd refused to let go even in unconsciousness. James blinked, confused, vulnerable in a way he never allowed himself to be. Kate. His voice cracked, rough and unfamiliar. Why are you here? She stirred at the sound, lifting her head. Her eyes were puffy, tired, but steady when they met his. You scared everyone, she whispered. And you didn't want me to leave. That was before, he murmured, staring at the ceiling as if ashamed of the weakness that had spilled out of him earlier. Kate shook her head. James, I stayed because you're not as alone as you think. The words settled into the room with a weight neither of them expected. He turned his head toward her, slowly, carefully. For once, the coldness in his eyes was gone. No fury, no armor, just a man who had been holding everything in for too long. His throat bobbed. He swallowed hard, blinking back something he didn't want her to see but couldn't hide. Kate, he whispered, the name sounding different this time. Softer. Don't go. She squeezed his hand gently. I'm right here. And for the first time in years, maybe decades, something inside James William cracked, quietly, painfully, but undeniably open. The night held its breath around them. The morning light seeped into the hospital room in pale streaks, softening the harshness of the night before. Nurses whispered in the hallway. Carts rolled. Life outside the door felt normal again. Inside, nothing was normal. Kate stood near the foot of James's bed, palms damp. The flash drive weighed heavily in her hand. She waited until he opened his eyes, until he looked at her, not with anger, but with the fragile uncertainty of someone bracing for impact. She stepped forward and placed the drive on the blanket beside him. I know, she said quietly. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then the color drained from his face so fast, she thought he might faint again. His lips parted, no words ready. No excuses practiced. Just shock, pure and unfiltered. How much did you see? His voice was barely there. Kate swallowed. Enough. Silence rippled between them, thick and suffocating. James closed his eyes, exhaling shakily. When he finally spoke, it wasn't the billionaire, the tyrant, or the untouchable figure the world feared. It was just a man, one holding a secret too heavy to carry alone. My wife didn't leave, he said. She disappeared 5 years ago, without a trace. Kate's breath hitched. He continued, staring at the flash drive as if it burned him. The investigation led to people my security team didn't trust. Your mother's name appeared in the records, not as a suspect, as a witness, one who vanished before she could give her statement. Kate's knees weakened. The room tilted. My mother, she whispered. But she died in a car accident. I know. His voice broke. That's why I kept the files. To understand how everything connected. To understand why she was involved at all. Pain carved itself across Kate's face. You hid this. From everyone. I wasn't ready to face it, he said. Or anyone connected to it. She took a step back. Hurt, confused, overwhelmed. James's hand shot out, gripping the sheet, desperate. Kate, don't walk away. She froze. His voice dropped to something trembling, human. I can't face this alone again. And for the first time, Kate realized the truth was breaking him just as much as it was breaking her. The room had gone still again, too still. Morning sunlight warmed the corners of the walls, but between James and Kate, the air felt brittle, stretched thin by everything they now knew. Kate stood near the window, fingers trembling against the sill. James watched her with a heaviness in his eyes that went far beyond illness. It was something older, something he'd carried long before collapsing in his study. He drew a breath. Kate, he said quietly, there's something else. She didn't turn around. How much more could there possibly be? A lot, he rasped. But this one is mine. She finally faced him. He looked afraid, truly afraid, for the first time since she'd met him. I yelled at you because his voice cracked, and he pressed a hand against his forehead, as though steadying himself. When you looked at me, I felt like I wasn't the monster I'd become, and I didn't know how to handle that. Kate's breath caught. He lifted his eyes to hers, unshielded, unguarded. You looked at me like I was still human. For a moment, she couldn't speak. The man who had slammed his own walls shut for 5 long years was showing her the wreckage behind them. And he wasn't doing it with anger. He was doing it with truth. Her voice shook as she stepped closer. James, maybe it's time you learned. His eyes softened, the tension in his shoulders easing just a little, as if her words had loosened a knot so tightly tied inside him that it had begun to choke him. I don't know how, he admitted. I don't either, she said. But maybe we start here. Not touching, not reaching, just standing close enough for honesty to feel possible. Something settled between them, gentle, uncertain, but undeniably real. Not romance, not friendship, something in a fragile space between. 2 lives, twisted together by secrets neither of them asked for. 2 people who had finally stopped running from the truth, because the truth had caught them both. By late afternoon, the William estate felt different, lighter, almost like the house itself had been holding its breath for years and finally exhaled. James stood at the center of the grand foyer, his staff gathered anxiously around him. For as long as anyone could remember, meetings like this only meant terminations, warnings, or new rules meant to keep everyone in line. But today, James's posture was humble, grounded, human. He cleared his throat. I owe you all an apology, he said, voice steady but soft. Especially Kate. Every head twisted toward her. Kate felt her pulse jump. I treated her with disrespect, James continued. And that was wrong. From this day forward, that will not happen again. A ripple of shock moved through the room. He turned to Kate directly. Your job is reinstated fully, and you have a choice. Transfer anywhere within my properties or stay here. Whatever you choose, it will be respected. Kate swallowed, eyes stinging. I'll stay, she said. Not because I have to, but because I understand now. And because there's more truth to uncover. Something relieved, almost grateful, passed across his face. Later, they walked the estate grounds together, slow steps along the stone pathway overlooking the Connecticut woods. The cold air nipped gently at the tips of the trees, turning them gold. James spoke quietly. Everything I buried, everything I didn't face, I want to uncover it. All of it. But not alone. He looked at her. Only if you're willing. Kate nodded. I am. For a moment, she let her thoughts drift, her voice narrating the truth in her heart. Some stories don't end, they unfold. And if you've walked this far with us, maybe it's because you believe in second chances too. A story like this deserves witnesses. They stopped at the top of the hill, the mansion glowing behind them. The truth didn't break them. It began something neither of them expected. And this was only the beginning. Thank you for staying to the very end. And if this story captivates you, the next one will interest you more. Like, comment, and share to help the video to reach more people. Thank you.